Greetings, everyone, and welcome to ACEDS Data Unmasked, streaming live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. My name is Michael Quartararo. I am the president of ACEDS. Today, we will be joined shortly by Kristin Lindsey, Vice President of Client Services at HaystackID. Kristin's been working in the industry for, 20 plus years in various client-facing capacities. We'll get into her background in a little bit. But before that, we should note that Haystack is a professional services organization providing e-discovery, information governance, and cybersecurity services to the legal community. You can learn more about their services and offerings at HaystackID.com. Haystack is also an incredible partner and valued contributor to the ACEDS community, and we like to showcase what's going on with our partners for the benefit of our members and the e-discovery community at large. So every month we're doing these live stream broadcasts with experts like Kristin to discuss what's going on in the industry, the latest trends and happenings, and what's going on within their organization. Let's get into it. Kristin, thank you so much for making time to join us, and welcome to the broadcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So I always like to start with a little bit about you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your career journey, how you found yourself in this business we call e-discovery, and let's start there.
Okay. I actually always enjoy learning about how people found their way to e-discovery. It's always usually an adventure. Myself, I was considering.
You say it's always by accident.
Right? They fell into it is what it usually starts out with. But similarly, I did also fall into e-discovery. After my undergrad, I was considering going to law school. So I found a job at a company that mentioned legal solutions in the description, and it happened to be an e-discovery service provider. And so I ultimately was able to get a glimpse of what this side of the e-discovery space is like. I worked my way around different positions, ultimately landing myself in a client-facing role, eventually in project management. But before that, I had to navigate the data side of the company and learn about how data is processed, how it ultimately is hosted, and services are offered for clients. So it was a good background and an exposure for me getting into the ultimate project management client services side of the e-discovery space. But over the years, I've predominantly been on the service provider side of the e-discovery industry. I have worked in product development as well, and that's how my two worlds collided here at Haystack. And I'm just shy of 4 years at Haystack. I currently sit as the Vice President of Client Services at Haystack. But what's fun for me in my role at Haystack is I get to also partner with our development team and different groups that also are building software that enables our clients to continue their journey in e-discovery as well. So I am excited to talk to you a little bit about some of that here today.
And we're excited to have you. I'd like to start really with just sort of unpacking from the vantage point of the Vice President of Client Services. What is the service vision for HaystackID? I think listeners would want to know that. We'll get into some of the more specific offerings in a minute, but
sure.
give us the high level vision first.
Absolutely. I think from my vantage point, it always centers around understanding what our customers need to support their day-to-day responsibilities, their wants, their wishes, what makes things more efficient. And you really have to talk to your customer. You have to listen. You have to look for subtleties with responses. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution for all of our clients out there. So trying to really hear each individual and address what ultimately meets their needs is really important with respect to the vision. I think when you ultimately understand clients and their needs, you have to ultimately look at supporting them in a way that creates efficiencies as well. Um, it's always centered in our support models, I think, and in our vision. I think it never stops with that first conversation as well. So follow up and ultimately creating different ways that customers can continue sharing feedback and telling us where they need to be met with respect to support is really important. And then finally, that just that cherry on top to me is going the extra mile. What delights clients? What proactive creative things can we be doing that ultimately support our clients even before they ask for it at times, I think is probably the most integral part to our service vision.
That's awesome, and the perfect segue into my next question, which is about the Haystack offering. Anybody who follows has seen or heard of CoreFlex, the new offering from Haystack. What is CoreFlex? What is it? Why is it important? And of course, why should customers care?
Sure. I think there's several ways you could describe CoreFlex, but my favorite is thinking of it as a command center, a one-stop shop for clients to go and facilitate their e-discovery needs, which include access to their data, processing data, access to reporting, so that matter level reporting, portfolio level reporting, all of those things that bring together the typical e-discovery service needs into one place and ultimately creates an opportunity for clients to self-manage if they want, or ultimately bring in Haystack for support. But it really is that command center that facilitates launching everyday needs in one stop for clients. Why that's important? It exists at Haystack because we were listening to our clients. Clients don't always want to have somebody else supporting every phase of
Mm.
a matter as it moves through the e-discovery life cycle. So positioning clients to kick off their matters when they want in a self-service capacity, but also have that support layer around them should they need it at any moment in time was really a voice of the client coming to us. So I think why it's important to our clients and to Haystack is that it illustrates that we listen and that we ultimately are willing to invest in solutions that meet their needs as they evolve. But it also kind of bridges the gap from Haystack being just service forward, but also presenting tech enabled solutions that help us remain efficient, create all of those opportunities for leveraging technology as we love to do.
And I guess I would kind of equate your description to what we sort of as a legacy matter might have referred to as managed services. But
Sure.
this sounds like maybe I'd characterize it as managed services on steroids a little bit.
Yeah, I think also that's a really good point because it is another opportunity for clients to engage with Haystack and have a different type of managed services solution. All of those traditional things are there and available to clients, but who is pushing the buttons and when and how much you're interfacing with Haystack personnel is up to the client at that point. So we're there. It's a protection layer, but they can also self manage and have access to the top tech that's out there and the reporting that can be costly and time consuming to create if they're generating it or having a provider generate it on their behalf.
That's fantastic. And so I obviously, I spent many years working at law firms and working with service providers. And so I sort of have in my head, and maybe it's changed over the years, but I have in my mind this vision of how I'd like a company like Haystack to interact with me or my team if I was at a
Sure.
firm or whatever. How does this translate into sort of project ownership, into the kinds of things I valued were responsiveness and communication, handoffs between different matters and meeting deadlines and things like that. How does CoreFlex translate into those kind of sort of, valuable intangibles that you kind of look for as a company using Haystack as a provider?
I think it's a really important question because whenever technology introduces opportunities for clients to self-manage, but also engage Haystack for support, you have to start thinking about who is supporting customers when they are faced with those moments and needing support. What we chose to do with Core Flex and our offering and our support layer around it is position a client services pod of e-discovery professionals, technologists, project managers, et cetera, that our clients are used to working with on a day-to-day basis. So their pod is also their support layer when it comes to navigating matters through Core Flex. A lot of our Core Flex clients are actually clients who choose to have, Core Flex matters also when there's no interest in supporting those internally at all through any of the phases of the matter. Haystack is also supporting those from a full service capacity.
Mm.
Well, the individuals that are supporting our clients in those cases, whether it's Core Flex or full service, is the exact same group. So we didn't bifurcate support to a technology specific group that doesn't know anything about a client's program, best practices, things of that nature, so that they're dealing with familiar faces and names, people that know their goals and program needs. And so it really helps create that extra layer of support. We're not recreating the wheel with each time the client is interfacing with our products or support throughout the life cycle of their matters.
And I love the pod concept, right? And it sounds, and you correct me if I'm wrong on this, it sounds like there's a consistent team that's going to understand not just individual matter needs, but larger portfolio needs in terms of
Sure.
managing projects. There's always going to be someone there. If someone on the team is on vacation, there's another person there stepping in to fill in. It sounds like it's just, you've got it covered, right?
That's exactly the idea. And I think the challenge with that is, you know, and I think this has evolved over the years as e-discovery has, the industry and the support models around it have matured. But there is truly that sweet spot of where you have enough support that can match the industry's pace and need, but not lose that customer support or that knowledge as different individuals are engaging on the same matter to support a client. So that's an area we choose to focus our support model with respect to our pods in that minutia. How do we best ensure and mitigate risk when an individual is stepping out for a moment in time and another individual is coming in? We've really fixated on, bridging the gaps and mitigating risk in that handoff, if you will. And I can dive into that a little bit if you'd like.
I want to back up for a minute because I want to ask about
Sure.
onboarding. Like, just play a scenario for me for a moment. You've got a new firm who's coming in. They've got tons of work. How can, for our listeners, how can they expect that onboarding process
Sure.
to move forward? And I've got a bunch of other questions along those lines, but let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important to recognize that onboarding is important, but it can look different depending upon the client or their needs. It can be paced over several months, but it can also happen in real time very quickly to get a client up and running. So again, we're looking at what the client needs and meeting them where they need to be met with respect to onboarding. But onboarding is going to happen it regardless. So we have tools in place where we can set up an onboarding platform, if you will, where a client can have documentation access. It can be collaborative. We track our onboarding goals there, but again, at the pace that's needed to get a client up to speed and moving in the tools. So the first things out the gate are figuring out who are the stakeholders from the client that need access to the tools. So if it was a core flex onboarding, we would be understanding who needs access. We would be ensuring that they're trained to utilize the tool for exactly what they're going to be doing in their day to day. We make sure that they understand how to access support if needed out the gate. So understanding their program goals, their training needs, and how to gain access to support and their best practices, and showing them how to implement those is, core to the onboarding process, I think. And then documentation follows from there, playbooks, SOPs, things of that nature that are needed to make sure everybody stays on the same page as it moves forward.
Yeah, I absolutely want to get into that. But before that, I want to ask about, anybody who works in this business know there's more change than we care for. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
So how are the teams, sort of engaging with clients, and what change management approaches are you using to sort of reduce the friction when, Friday night at 5 o'clock things change?
Sure. I think it's key to understand what the change is, understand if it's a temporary change for a particular request or a particular job, or if it is truly a program level best practice change that will be implemented going forward. So we take it the approach of figuring that out. So identifying the change, figuring out the dependencies across the program needs that are impacted by it. And along the way, so during onboarding, if we're creating a playbook and documenting best practices, say for production or different types of support needs, if we encounter a change down the road, the project team is part of that change management process where they're identifying the dependencies, the documentation that needs updating. They're communicating it to the entire pod or team that's supporting the client, so that when the next instance of that change needing to be implemented comes up, it's already anticipated and documented and ready to go.
And what about like quality assurance, Kristin? What are you implementing as a VP of client service? How is quality assurance maintained consistently throughout matters and ensuring outcomes
Sure.
are successful for clients?
I think that quality is it's paramount to everything. If we're doing work and delivering it with issues, it's not helping anybody. So we approach quality in a couple of different ways. A lot of our rinse and repeat processes and services that we offer have kind of a checks and balances.
Mm.
Individuals are gathering specifications from clients, submitting them to SME groups to execute. We have a quality department that sits outside those folks that are submitting the requests, executing the requests, that's coming in with a lens to look for traditionally encountered issues that come up in that service, but they're also weighing it against the specifications of each request and looking for the nuances and validating that the SME groups have actually done what was requested. But beyond that, there's a lot of opportunity where as the industry moves and things evolve, that once a request is submitted, it goes through quality control. Our project managers are also performing a level of QC on that to make sure that nothing has changed in the meantime as well. That's part of that change management exercise. Sometimes, a coding call could change on a document after it had gone through production. So we do one last round of quality control measures on deliverables that are going out the door to make sure that nothing has changed along that way. So it's a formal approach to quality control that we have ingrained in our culture, so that we're not cutting corners. We're making sure that we're thinking about the level of quality control that needs to go in, because you can't overdo it. Things have to move quickly. They have to get out the door and be able to get done in a timely manner. So we try and strike the right balance there as well.
And many people who work in the legal business have probably heard the phrase knowledge management. And we're sitting here talking about e-discovery. And it's interesting because if you work in legal, you kind of think of those two things as separate and never shall they touch each other. But clearly, you've got in place some templatized things, standard operating procedures, decision trees. I'm sure project plans are part of your work output as well. How do these sort of knowledge management principles, how do they sort of shorten ramp time for new matters and reduce various, let's say, obstacles throughout an event or an active matter? I'm sorry.
Sure. I think, again, it's about balance. So when we're onboarding a client, we're figuring out what best practices and specifications can be applied to every single matter. So regardless of what's going on, we're going to do X, Y, and Z for these matters to, ultimately protect delivery, cut costs, and, be an extension of our clients' teams. But when there are scenarios where we identify in that onboarding process that certain things will need to be asked for every matter to validate. And so I think it really starts there, is understanding what is rinse and repeat, what is going to be carried forward for everything, but then what are those items that could change. So we're not recreating the wheel when we're kicking off new matters. We know that those things that we've already discussed can be applied, and we're simply just honing in on those specifications and clarifications that are needed, that by design we're meant to ask to support our clients' needs and best practices. So we aim to be as efficient as possible, but and proactively identify those opportunities up front.
We're almost out of time, Kristin. I want to ask you one more, I think one of the more important questions, at least from the perspective as a consumer of Haystack services, and that is, how are you demonstrating sort of post matter or even during a matter, how the value proposition is reported? How is it measured and reported to clients to demonstrate that you're operationally efficient and continuously improving?
Sure. I think it's a really important aspect of a relationship with a customer to ensure that throughout their matters and throughout the relationship, we're capturing metrics that could position us to report on ROI or value that we're providing. So in data, as data is so voluminous, it often, it evolves as it moves through different phases. So we're capturing where culling opportunities happened. We're capturing where we were able to reduce the number of documents that went downstream into review, the number of matters that we were able to help position them to self-serve through different phases. But how that's captured and reported it comes through a couple of different ways. I mentioned in Core Flex, we position the tool with automatic reports that are generated that show clients those metrics in real time. But we also take a step back and aim to have just formal business reviews with our clients, where we're talking about metrics that matter, that show the client what we've been able to do for them on their behalf as a partner throughout the quarter. Or we tend to conduct these business reviews on a quarterly basis. Sometimes it's twice a year, whatever makes sense for the customer, but that really gives us an opportunity to peel back and present metrics that show all the value that has been experienced.
That's incredibly valuable. All right, I know we're kind of coming to the end of the tail end, I guess, of conference season. I guess we call it that. Any big events coming up at Haystack? Where can we find you out in the community?
Well, our team has referred to this as conference season. We did just wrap. We had quite a few folks at Relativity Fest. I know that our account team is going to be at all the upcoming conferences, and we look forward to having those opportunities to meet with our customers. We also are available to ultimately generate those encounters organically as well, by scheduling demos, different types of meetings in advance. So we're always available to get on the line and have a conversation about our services and offerings.
Sure, absolutely. And Kristin, how should listeners get in touch if they want to reach out to you?
Well, I am on LinkedIn. My information is also on our website. We have contact information on how to reach our support teams. I'm part of all of those groups and receive those messages. So any of those forms are definitely acceptable.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kristin. Thanks for making time for us today. And listen, everybody, if you are interested in our short form video interviews like this one, you can find Data Unmasked and our We Are ACEDS series in your LinkedIn, Facebook feeds, or check out the ACEDS YouTube channel where you can watch previous interviews. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you, Kristin. And everyone, please be kind to one another.
Thank you, Mike.